Hi guys, welcome to another crochet tutorial with me, Laura, and in this video we're going to be having a look at my little sort of scrubby washcloth crochet pattern. And if you saw my last video, my last sort of yarn stash share video from Hobium, then I introduced to you the Lamia linen cotton yarn that I received, and this is a really lovely yarn for these washcloths. So let's have a go, let's begin. Okay, so the Lamia linen cotton yarn is made from 70% cotton and 30% linen, and you can wash it at 30 degrees. And one of these balls is perfect enough for one of these washcloths, and you get 50-gram ball. It's 120 meters. You only need one of these to make one washcloth, and I'll show you how big they are. So they're quite big. They measure about, I actually don't know how many they measure. Oh, I've got a tape measure just here. So they measure about 23.5 centimeters squared. So it should be 23 by 23. So about 23 by 23, or in inches, it's about 9 inches by 9 inches. And it's also got a little sort of tassel holder loop, so you can hang up your washcloths to dry, but I do recommend to dry these flat and then hang them up rather than actually hang them to dry, because they crocheted washcloths tend to distort if they're hung up to dry. So dry it flat and then hang it up. Okay, so for this pattern we're going to chain 46. We're going to use a 3.5mm E4 crochet hook, and it's also a good idea to have a pair of scissors and a yarn needle as well for sewing in those ends. And for this pattern I'm going to use the blue for this last washcloth. So just undo this label, which sadly got ripped in the post. And what we're going to do is we are going to chain 46 to begin, but we're going to chain 46 half double crochet foundation stitches, which I know might sound a bit scary, but give it a try. You can instead, if you want to, you can chain 47 and just work one half double crochet in your second chain from your hook and one half double crochet in each chain across, so you get 46. But we're going to do the half double crochet foundation stitch. So we're going to do our little slip knot, and first thing we're going to do is we're going to chain 2. So we chain 1 and 2, and then we're going to yarn over to do a half double crochet, or in UK terminology a half treble. We yarn over, we're going to put our hook into our first chain that we did into there, and we're going to bring the yarn through the first chain. And all we do to do a foundation stitch, instead of just yarning over and pulling through all 3 to do a normal half double crochet, we're just going to treat it like knitting crochet in a way. We're going to just yarn over and pull through the first loop only, and then we yarn over and pull through all 3. And what that does is it creates our foundation chain on the left hand side, and there's our half double crochet. And the next one we yarn over and we work it into that foundation chain we created. And if you get confused which loop to work under, just count. It'll be your 4th loop over. So there's your first loop, second loop in the middle there, third loop. It's this 4th one here. So you want to find that 4th loop on the left hand side, and then put your hook. It seems to be a spider. No! Right, I'm going to have to pause. It's a spider. Okay, sorry about that. Where were we? Right. Totally had to get rid of that spider then. Humanely, of course, I don't kill spiders. So we yarn over and we need to go into that 4th loop on the left hand side, this foundation chain. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Find that loop. We're going to go onto that loop, but we're also going to find the other loop underneath. So it's like a proper stitch. It's going under like a proper stitch. We bring the yarn through there, and then we're ready to do the next thing again. So it's a good idea just to keep that a little bit loose, especially this first loop, otherwise it can be too tight to work into on your next one. And then we just yarn over, and then pull through the first loop again to create your next foundation chain, and then we yarn over, pull through all 3 to do the foundation chain, and then we're ready to work into our next foundation chain. So we yarn over, we count 4 loops over, 1, 2, 3, 4. You should see it, just in case you don't know, you can count. we go under there, and the other loop the other side, so get working under it like a proper stitch. Okay, under a proper stitch, bringing the yarn through, keeping it loose, and then we just do the same thing again. We pull for the first loop only, and then yarn over, pull through all three to do your foundation chain. And we're going to do 46 of those, 46 foundation chains. So once you've got 46, I shall come back and show you what to do next. So again, we yarn over, we go into this new foundation chain we created, and if you're not sure which loop, just count 4 loops over, 1, 2, 3, 4, which only works with a half double crochet. If you're doing single crochet foundation chains or double crochet, you'd have different amounts probably. And then bring the yarn through, keep it loose, pull for the first loop only to create your next foundation chain, pull through all 3. Okay, and we want 46 of these, but if this is too complicated and way too difficult if you're a beginner, you can just chain 47, so 1 extra, and do 1 half double crochet in your second chain from your hook, so don't count the loop on your hook, your second chain down, do a half double crochet in there and a half double crochet in each chain to the end, so you've got a stitch count of 46. You could do that as well. Okay, so I shall do this and then I shall come back. Just going up to the last one, number 46, and again just work into that side chain, foundation chain, and we do the same thing again. Even though it's our last one, we pull through the last loop only, the first loop only, and then pull through all 3, and there we go. We have 46, should have 46 half double crochet foundation chains. Okay, then what we're going to do is we're going to start to do the bubbly effect we got here. It's our little bead stitch. The first thing we're going to do though is we're going to do a little chain 1, not going to count that as a stitch, and we're going to turn, and we're going to work, we're going to yarn over, and we're going to do a half double crochet in that first stitch. Okay, so now we're just working normal stitches. So in that first stitch we do a half double crochet, or a half treble if you're in the UK, and then we're also going to do a half double crochet in the next stitch. Okay, half double crochet in the next stitch as well. But then what we're going to do is we're going to yarn over and we're going to put our hook in between these half double crochets. So find the gap in between, and we're going to put our hook into that gap in between them. We're going to grab the yarn and bring it through, but we're going to stop there and we're going to yarn over again. We're going to go back into the same gap in between those half double crochets, and again grab the yarn. We're going to do that once more. We yarn over, go into that gap, bring the yarn through, and we end up with lots of loops on our hook. Not sure how many we have. I think we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, I think. And then what we need to do is yarn over. Try and keep these loose so it's easier to do this, but yarn over and pull through all those loops. You might need to give it a wiggle. Okay, and that creates our little bead stitch, and all those loops are wrapped around that previous half double crochet. Then what we're going to do is we're going to skip 1 stitch. Okay, so skip 1 and do a half double crochet in the next stitch. Okay, half double crochet in there, and we're going to do the same thing again. We're going to yarn over, going to find the gap in between that half double crochet and the bead stitch this time, so not into the stitch but this nice big gap here. We'll put our hook into there, bring the yarn round, so you've got 3 loops, yarn over, and go back into that gap again, bring the yarn round, 5 loops, and a third time yarn over into the gap, bring the yarn through, 7 loops, then yarn over, pull through all 7 loops to do your bead stitch. So you're just wrapping it around the half double crochet, and repeat that all the way to the end. So we're going to skip the next stitch and do 1 half double crochet in the next stitch, And do the same thing again. We're going to find the gap in between the half double crochet and the bead stitch. Careful not to work into the gap, the stitch at the top. We need to go into this big gap here, and we're going to yarn over, because we're doing half double crochets, go into that big gap in between the bead stitch and the half double crochet, bring the yarn through, keep it loose, yarn over into the gap again, bring the yarn through, keep it loose, yarn over for a third time into the gap, bring it through, keep it loose, yarn over, pull through all the loops to finish. Okay, so repeat that all the way to the end. So skip the next stitch and a half double crochet in the next stitch, and do the same thing again. Okay, just repeat that all the way to the end, and eventually you should get a little bit of a rhythm like this going. Should get used to it. So I shall do that, and then I shall come back and show you what to do next. Okay, and just coming up to the end, you should be left with 2 stitches left. We're going to skip the next stitch as normal and work into the very last stitch with a half double crochet. We're not going to work into these original 2 little chains we did at the beginning of our foundation row. Just forget about those. Work into the last proper stitch, half double crochet, and then that's it. We don't do a bead stitch around the last one, so just have a normal half double crochet on the end. Okay, so you should end up with how many bead stitches? 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 22. You should have 22 bead stitches. And what we're going to do next is we're going to do a normal row of just half double crochets. So we're going to chain 1, again don't count that as a stitch, and turn. We're going to do 1 half double crochet in each stitch across. So we go into that first stitch, and some will look bigger than others. Do a half double crochet. The next one's going to be tucked on the top of that bead stitch. Do a half double crochet in there. Then the next one will be a big one, big stitch, and then you'll have a smaller, tighter one on the top. So just do 1 half double crochet in each stitch to the end, keeping a stitch count of 46. Okay, oops, and careful not to do that. You need to just catch the top of that stitch. So I should do that, and then I should come back. Okay, so just coming up to the end, and you need to make sure you work into all the right stitches. So that's the last one on the bead stitch, and then there's actually 2 more at the very end. So the next stitch there, because sometimes it looks like you're at the end there, but you just need to find that little sort of horizontal bar there, which really does tell you where the end of your row is. So this very last stitch is more sort of on the edge. But the easiest way to make sure you've got your stitch count right is to count it. So you should have a stitch count of 46 half double crochets. Okay, so now what we're going to do is technically repeat that pattern, but we are doing something slightly different on the next row. And this is so that we get a nice even pattern of bead stitches. You may notice on this one that's finished, they slightly come in on the next row, then go back out, go in, out, in, out. You can shake it all about. So what we're going to do is we're going to chain 1 and turn, and if you remember when we did this row we did half double crochet in the first 2 stitches, but what we're going to do this time, we're going to do a half double crochet in the first stitch as normal, but we're going to go straight into skipping the next stitch. So skip the next stitch and do 1 half double crochet in the next stitch. Okay, so this time we're skipping a stitch before we do our next half double crochet. Then we just do the same thing again. So we find the gap in between the half double crochets, in there, yarn over, go in, bring up the yarn, and do that twice more. Yarn over into the gap, bring the yarn through, yarn over into the gap, bring the yarn through, wrapping it around that half double crochet, then yarn over, pull through all the loops to do a bead stitch. Okay, and then we go straight into the same pattern again. We skip 1, then 1 half double crochet, and we do the same thing again. We yarn over into the gap between the bead stitch and the half double crochet this time, bring the yarn through. Be careful not to work into any of these below stitches, it has to be that big gap. Do that twice more, yarn over into the gap, bring the yarn through, yarn over to the gap, bring the yarn through, yarn over, pull through all 7 loops, and then again skip 1 half double crochet. Okay, and then we do that all the way to the end, and it'll be slightly different at the end because we skipped one near the beginning. So I will show you just what to do for this row. And I just lost that. That's so annoying. Let's do that one again. So yeah, just repeat that and then join me once I've got to the end of this row. Okay, so when you get to this row, you will have 3 stitches left, and we're going to, as normal, skip the next stitch and work into the next stitch and do a half double crochet, and we do a bead stitch in around there as well because we're not quite at the end yet. So let's do our bead stitch, and then in the very last stitch, the one last stitch left, we just do a half double crochet. So we don't skip one and then do a half double crochet, we just go straight into the last stitch. So what you're doing effectively is swapping the stitch over to this side. So what we're going to do now is we're just going to do a normal row of half double crochets. So we're going to chain 1 and turn, do 1 half double crochet in the first stitch, and 1 half double crochet in each stitch across, being careful in those tight bead stitches. Keeping a stitch count of 46 all the way to the end. Okay, and just coming up to the end, still doing 1 half double crochet in each stitch to the end, just making sure not to miss these last few stitches. Just make sure your stitch count is still 46. And there's the last one. You can always tell the last one because you've got like this little nubbin horizontal bar there, which tells you where the last stitch is. So there we go, and then we just repeat those last 4 rows. So on the next row, we're going to alternate back to what we did for this bead stitch row, and that's where we put the 2 half double crochets together. We don't skip one in between, whereas here we skipped one at the beginning. We did half double crochet, then we skipped one, but this time we're going to do the same as what we did here. We're going to do a half double crochet in the first stitch, and we're going to do a half double crochet straight into the next stitch, and this just allows the pattern to, the washcloth to sit better and be more square. And then we do our bead stitch in between those 2 half double crochets, and then at the end we just skip 1 and do 1 half double crochet. Okay, and now we skip 1 and do 1 half double crochet, and then do our bead stitch around the previous half double crochet. And just repeat that to the end. Skip 1 half double crochet. Okay, when you get to the end, this time you'll have 2 stitches left, so we skip the stitch at the end instead and just do 1 half double crochet in the last stitch, but we don't do a bead stitch around it. Okay, so there we go, and then we go back to just doing 1 half double crochet in each stitch across. So just repeat those 4 rows, alternating between skipping the stitch at the beginning or at the end, depending on the row. So sometimes an easy way to remember which one to do is, I just imagine that's in and out, in, out, and alternate all the way up to the end until you've got how many bead stitch rows? 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 15 bead stitch rows in total. And you're going to end on a row of just 1 half double crochet in each stitch across. So in total, from the very beginning, you should have 31 rows, I think. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24, 26, 28, 31. Okay, so 31 rows in total. So when you've done that and repeated all those rows, I'll come back and show you how to just add on the little loop at the end so you can hang it up. There we go. So now I'm going to do a chain one turn, do a little chain one turn, and I'm going to do 1 half double crochet in each stitch across. Okay, so I shall do that and then join me at the very end. Okay, so I've finished that and I've done 31 rows in total, and I've ended on just 1 half double crochet in each stitch along. So let's just pull it out and have a look. So you should have 15 of these bead stitch rows, but you should have 31 rows in total, and it should be roughly a square shape, which would be good. So what we're going to do now is just going to add a little loop on the end so you can hang it up, and all we're going to do is we're going to chain 20 from here. If I can get my hook back in. Chain 20 from here. So let's do that. So 1, 2, 3, 17, 18, 19 and 20, and it's going to focus on the wrong part, but I've chained 20 and we're going to turn our work around, and what we're going to do is we're just going to slip stitch into this last half double crochet. So in between these last 2 half double crochets, just in a gap in between, just anywhere in this area really, we're going to put our hook and we're going to do a little slip stitch. So just bring that through and straight through the loop on your hook. Okay, but we're going to make it look a little bit neater than that, and we're just going to turn our work round, so we're working technically from the beginning again, making sure all our yarn's in the right place. We are going to put our hook into this big 20 chain space, this big gap, grab the yarn, and we're going to do a single crochet. So in UK terminology, that's going to be a double crochet. Okay, do a single crochet, and we're just going to neaten that up, and we're going to do lots of single crochets. You should fit in about 28, so actually more than 20. So go back in there again, just wrapping it around the chains, do a single crochet, and if it's a little bit untidy like that, you can just move it over, and so it's sitting nicely against the other one. Okay, so just repeat that till you've done about 28 single crochets. Back in there again, just wrapping it around the chains, doing another single crochet. So that's about 4. It doesn't really matter how many you do, as long as you work them and make them evenly spaced. 6, 27 and 28. Should be enough. You could probably fit 30 in there if you really wanted to. Let's just use up that space, shall we? 29, and I'll do around 30. It really doesn't matter how many you put in, as long as they're nicely evenly spaced, like so. Okay, and then we're just going to find the same gap, make sure it's facing the same way it was before, and find the last 2 half double crochets, and again put your hook in between them, bring the yarn through and do another slip stitch. Okay, and that's it. What we're going to do now is just cut our yarn and sew in the ends. Okay, so cut our yarn. You should have about this much left. It's all a bit of a mess now, but I've got about that much left, so it should have more than enough to make this washcloth if you're a looser crocheter, so that should be just enough. And I'm just going to pull that through. Then we're going to take our yarn needle, thread on our yarn, and I'm just going to go back through the same hole again between those last 2 half double crochets, turn it upside down, and I'm just going to hide the tail end. Make sure it's all facing the right way, and just hide the tail end, just sew through as neatly as you can. Don't worry too much about this coming undone, because when it gets wet, all these fibres will sort of work together a little bit more, and this should be less likely to come undone. So, but I'm going to sew in one direction, sew back in the opposite direction, and then just for luck, I'm going to sew back along here, and that should be enough. Okay, and then you can trim down the excess. Okay, and that's your finished hanging loop. Okay, I'm going to do the same for the other tail end, wherever the other tail end is, the beginning tail end. I'm just going to hide this one, and then I'll come back and show you the finished washcloth. Okay, and there we go, there is our finished washcloth with our hanging loop. And you can fold this up into a nice square, like that, smaller square, and you can put it with the other ones that I've made. So the colours I used for these were, where were they? Okay, the colours I used, the blue, I remember the blue label because it was ripped. The blue was L187, that's this blue, and I don't remember which one is the green and which one was the cream, but they're going to be either L186, one of them, either the green or the cream is L186, and either the green or the cream is going to be L056. So the three colours to make exactly the same as this is going to be the L186, L056, L187, and it's the linen cotton in the Lamier range. Okay, so there we go, there's the tutorial, and this is going to make an absolute wonderful gift. I love these because the bead stitch creates a nice scrubby effect for the washcloth, and hopefully you'll enjoy making some soon. But I'll put all the details in the description below to where you can buy the yarn if you want to use this yarn, but you can use any nice sort of cotton variation yarn. They'll work really well for washcloths and they'll wash up well. So there we go, I'll see you soon for some more crochet fun. Thanks for watching, guys, bye.